You're listening to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sara Gillis, copywriter, word magic maker, and owner of What Sara Said. On this podcast, you'll feel empowered to show up online in a way that has you saying, "That's so me." Let's get started. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Copywriter On Call podcast. I am your host, Sara Gillis, and I'm logging some on-call hours today with Carly, a brand designer and the owner of Hey Carl. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for letting me participate and hang out and talk all things.
Of
AI.
course. I'm so excited. For those who don't know, Carly and I also live in the same town. So it's super fun to have somebody local on the podcast too. I love talking to my people throughout the United States, but it's a special treat to talk to somebody local. So I'm so glad you're here.
Heck yeah, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. So I always love to start out by just having you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do.
Certainly. So as you mentioned, my name is Carly. I own Hey Carl. I grew up with the nickname Carl. I was named after my grandpa Carl. And when I went through a rebrand a few years ago, that was the thing that just kind of stuck with it. It's very, very approachable in how I like to treat my clients, where it's just very conversational. And the thing that I do is brand design and brand strategy. So a lot of logos, a lot of websites, and then the strategy is just naturally intertwined in there. And then my favorite thing about it, I think, is just the creativity. I really like how every project is different. I did a lot of painting back in the day. I haven't done it in a while, which breaks my heart a little bit every time. But the one thing that I like about the brand design is it's very much like a new canvas every time. So it's just digital artwork. It's a new painting. Yeah.
I love that. It's been so fun to watch your business evolve especially over the last few years since you rebranded. Hey Carl just fits so beautifully with who you are. Like the way you show up, the way you interact with people, it just feels so personable and so relaxed and conversational. And I love the rebrand. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that. My friend Mariah helped out with the name and all of that. So that was I remember right when she said it, I was like, that's it. That's the one.
Yeah, I love that. So I've shared a lot on this podcast about ChatGPT, which is just one example of an AI-powered platform. And I wanted to bring you on to talk about AI-assisted design. And I kind of wanted to just start with where we might already be encountering this in our daily lives or in our work and not even really realizing it.
I mean, yes, as far as not even really realizing it, I think we see it a lot on social media in particular. I mean, now Instagram has the thing on there too, I've seen, where you have to tag this was created in AI. I remember even in the NFL last year, there were some AI generated commercials that were in there, which I was really surprised about. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was a religious one, actually, now that I think about it, but it was just images of washing feet, but you can tell that it was AI generated. And I think they had part of that caption in there, but I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, I think it's definitely already very well integrated. And I am a little conspiracy theorist in general. So I think a lot of the technology that most of us regular folk have, it's been out for so long already. So who knows how long the AI stuff has been around, especially when you get into the deep fake stuff. I don't know if you've seen that Instagram, TikTok, when I was back on there, there's a Tom Cruise dude running around with that. So I think it's already very prevalent in what we see, but now it's just a broader conversation, especially with artists and designers. I know there's concern with copyright stuff and job replacement, but I personally view it more as it's just a tool. It's not, I don't see it replacing anything anytime real soon anyway, but maybe that's naivety on my part. But no, I think it's just a tool. And if you can learn how to use the tool, it'll make your workflows a lot faster and keep you ahead of the game. Because I think that's something that a lot of, especially corporate jobs, when you get into the 9-to-5 type thing, I think if you can learn how to utilize the AI tools, that's going to put you a leg up in front of a lot of other people.
That's such an interesting perspective. I love the I love the AI capabilities that I'm seeing evolve just in terms of saving time. Like
Oh my God. Yes.
ChatGPT saves me time countless hours probably when I'm writing, especially for myself. I use it
Yep.
as a brainstorming tool.
Yes.
It's yeah, it's a really useful way to like just go from like stuck to like getting that initial idea, right?
Yeah.
Like to go from that blank screen syndrome to having a kernel of an idea that you can expand upon. And
Yep.
I wonder if design and AI is the same. Would you say
It
that's
totally
accurate?
is. It totally is. It's definitely when I onboard a client and we do our brand strategy session, I'll input that into Chat GPT, just kind of brainstorm like, how do you feel about this direction that I'm thinking? Does this align with this? Like visually, what would this look like? Or even with logo designs, if I got an idea on it, sometimes, previously before using Midjourney or even some of the image creation through Chat GPT, you would be spending hours doing the sketches. And sometimes it's nice to just input the idea initially and be like, hey, what would something like this look like? And give it the direct, what's the prompt or whatever, the direct prompt as best as you can anyway. And then you can kind of see, this actually does have a lot of promise, or this looks like complete garbage. I don't even want to spend any time exploring it any further. So, yeah, and it's not always accurate too. I mean, sometimes you have to go through that sketch process regardless. But yeah, as far as mood boards go and just creative direction, especially for like brand photography, honestly, I think brand photographers would, if they're not using Midjourney or Chat GPT yet for that, I think they're missing out real big on that, because that's a really great way to create the specific types of shots that you want for the brand photos. Even if they have extra limbs, like whatever, it direction of like, this is the kind of shot that I think would look really good for your brand in this kind of location. And you can create those locations as far as studio setups go or whatever. But yeah, I mean, as far as creative direction goes, and I think logo design primarily are the two that I use it the most for the idea brainstorming visually for that. I've tried websites and I've tried flyers, but they always get really inundated with extra information that it's like, this is shit. I don't want to deal with it. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
Just gonna.
I think I want to like move backwards just a bit and have us think a little bit about, I mean, ChatGPT is like all over, right? I think you'd be living under a rock if you didn't know what it was. But I
Yep.
think Midjourney is a little bit more nuanced. And so I would love to just kind of have you explain what is Midjourney and give us a few more examples of some uses for you as a designer.
I will do my best to explain what Midjourney is. I would say primarily the biggest difference between the two is ChatGPT is more of a language model. So the prompts and things that you give it, I think the types of images might be sometimes a little bit better because you have the descriptive piece of it, because that's what it's built, is around content. Whereas Midjourney, in my experience, I mean, depending on who you talk to about it, I mean, you can get into a lot more of like the techie advanced language of what it is, but it's definitely more of a visual piece of it. So you can use it for prompts. I believe you can use it for some copy stuff as well, but it's primarily just a visual creator. So the thing that I like about Midjourney that I think is really cool, that I think some people don't realize, and it'd be neat if ChatGPT did something like this too, where you put in your prompt and then you actually also have access to an entire library of what everybody is using on Midjourney. So you can see specifically what their prompts are to create a certain image. So you can cut and paste and just collage things together and just learn what works, what doesn't work. And it's a crapshoot every time. Like, you never know what it's going to be spit out anyway. So it's kind of a, play at your own risk, I guess. But, and I think
What a
there's a
cool
huge
feature.
It is. And I think that's a really big misconception where like, oh, this was made with AI. That's so easy. Like, yes and no. But if to get it to curate it to be exactly what it needs to be, like, that's a lot of, you are putting in a lot of time for that. I mean, but you're essentially stepping into the role as a creative director or an art director instead of the designer. So if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't know how to describe what you want, the output's going to be garbage. So your output's only going to be as good as your input.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I tell people all the time with ChatGPT too. Like your initial input matters, but those refinements that you continue to make, those, those questions you continue to ask, or try this again, but less cheesy, or try this again, but no puns. Like those are really important refinements for sure. And that takes expertise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're thinking about your personal experience with Midjourney, obviously you've talked about how it's great for mood boards and for, creative direction, but are there any uses that you think that business owners in general, whether they're photographers or not, should consider when it comes to, trying it out?
I think as far as, especially if you're DIYing your brand, if you are interested in hiring a designer and you're maybe on a bit of a budget, but you understand that you need some of the brand strategy piece of it, because that's always going to be the first thing that you need to start with, which, in case anybody is unfamiliar, you have your ideal client, you have your audience, you have your mission, your vision, value, goals, all of that embodies your direction for your brand. I think, if you can put a mood board together to either help create a vibe for your brand style, maybe a collage of some common colors. I mean, typically Pinterest is usually the go-to for this, but you could certainly create one specifically to you or cater to you from scratch if you know what you want. I think if you're going to look to hire, a photographer, even just kind of seeing what kind of images that you want to create, and then trying to find a photographer or a designer that aligns with your goals. I think that's a really budget-friendly approach, but you're still spending a lot of money in terms of your time that you're not paying yourself for it. So I think it's just trying to figure out, do you want to, not get paid and spend time, or would you rather hire somebody else to do it for you? That's always the caveat with self-employment and small business owner anyway. And then the other thing that you could use too is if you can't hire a brand photographer, you can use some of that stuff for images for your website or for social media marketing stuff. Just make sure you don't have any like floating genitalia around in the background or dude, there was a Sioux, I'm not going to name the business because I don't want to throw them totally under the bus, but there was a Sioux Falls local business that actually paid for a marketing piece. And they printed it. They had everything done for it. And it had a sixth finger.
What?
In the final piece.
No.
I was like, this is a joke. There's no way. So just, AI is great, but you pay attention to the details before you hit publish and get printed and whatever, unless that's like part of the message. But in this case, it certainly was not.
Oh my gosh. That like gives me goosebumps. Like, ugh.
Yeah, they have a team, they had employees. So I was like, whoops, that's an oopsies.
That's a big oops. Dang. Yeah. Oh man. So I would love to know what you're kind of seeing and noticing just in the design industry about the use of AI. Do you think that most designers that you encounter or you collaborate with or you're friendly with, do you think there's a little bit of a fear-based approach to it? Or do you think that they're really kind of openly adopting the use of it in certain ways?
I've noticed that it's very divisive and very similar with Canva as well. I think people who are anti-Canva are typically anti-AI, very protective and very, I think, fear-based of it, which I totally understand. It's a scary concept, and the idea that you're going to be replaced by AI. And again, maybe this is just me daydreaming and maybe I'm too naive for it. I don't know, but I don't see that happening. I think if you can learn to use the tool, I think let me backtrack too. And I think part of the fear is not so much that AI is going to take it over, but that it democratizes design. So anybody, I almost wonder from an observation point of that, if more of the fear is just that, yeah, it just kind of gets rid of a little bit of that superiority with it. And it forces you, like, you actually have to be good at your craft.
Mm.
And, so, I mean, that's what I view it as a little bit anyway. But, yeah, I know there are designers that are afraid of AI taking over. There's a few people that I follow that are really big into it, and I love watching what they're doing with it. But you can still tell, even if the AI images and things are really, really good, they still are a little cold. They don't have that human touch. And I don't think that's ever going to go away.
If what's being shared in this episode is inspiring you to bring more of your personality into how you show up online, I've got a quiz for you. Head over to whatsarasaid.com/quiz and discover your brand voice type so that you can feel confident in standing out through your words. This quiz will help you uncover the brand voice that's already within you, so your words can finally have you and your dream clients saying, "That's so me." Knowing your brand voice type means you'll have full permission to ditch the proper and polite copy if your authentic voice is actually quirky and fun. Your brand voice is what I call word magic, because honing it creates literal magic for you and your dream clients. Plus, after your brand voice type is revealed, you'll get access to 5 free social media prompts to help you share your voice right away. So what are you waiting for? Take this fun quiz now at whatsarasaid.com/quiz.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the Canva piece, because I've noticed that there's some chatter, whether it's on Threads or whether it's on Instagram, about this hesitancy to not necessarily use Canva, but to like empower clients to use their brand elements in Canva, or to even take things like brand colors and explore in Canva. So I'd love to get your designer take on that.
Like, designers are not excited about other people doing their own brand design stuff, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of that is when you're working with small business owners, there's a huge difference between working with a small business owner. Even if you invest in a brand designer, that's $6,000, $10,000, even $2,000. Like, depending on where you're at, everybody's investment on like expensive or affordable, it's always going to vary. And then there's a big difference when you have companies like Apple or Nike, where you have more than one marketing team that's able to do custom branding and be incredibly consistent across all fields. I mean, they get paid buco bucks to do that. So I think when you're a freelancer or a small boutique agency, part of the frustration, I think, with small business owners that do branding is they did invest in it. And the designers or the agency or whatever put in a lot of time and energy into creating a brand, and then trying to guide the small business owner to stay consistent within that. So when you get into the brand design and just branding in general, the biggest theme, and I mean, sure, as far as like social media and marketing goes in general, you hear it all the time, is consistency. As far as branding goes, the consistency is make sure you're staying in line with the types of images. Make sure you're staying in line with your brand colors. You don't venture off and like all of a sudden you add in like a flamingo hot pink that has nothing to do with your brand colors, or random fonts that have nothing to do with the brand voice that you've created. So I think as a designer, when you see that, it's really frustrating because you're actually tarnishing your brand as a whole. You're causing confusion. You're giving an identity crisis. And with Canva, you have a lot of capability. You have access to do the design. You have access to unlimited templates, color palettes, and fonts. And I think part of the hard part as a small business owner is to not get distracted by all of the options that are in there and be like, ooh, squirrel, this looks really cute. I love how this design looks. How can I do this in my brand? So I think that's where the frustration goes with brand designers and just designers in general, is trying to more guide them into, just because you can doesn't mean you should, as far as like doing all of the design things. my perspective of it, if anything, is I've found when clients do have the free reign and they go into Canva, I mean, I give it maybe 3 or 4 months, and then sometimes they'll come back and be like, I have no idea what I did, but I need your help.
Interesting.
In this mess that I created, or I'm just so frustrated. I'm so overwhelmed with all of the design options. I don't know what to do. And I think if you're really good at your craft, and if you keep the communication lines open and you keep it approachable instead of like staunchy nose in the air, your clients are going to keep coming back to you. And I think branding should always be a conversation. It shouldn't be an elitist thing by any means. And I think if you keep those communication lines open, it's going to keep you more of like a top of mind, top of conversation, and more of a professional and that like an expert in the field, and build more trust with your clients too, and be like, you know what? I tried the DIY thing with what you handed over to me. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, and I do need some help with this. So what can you do? Or can you create templates for me, you know, maybe every quarter or every month or whatever that needs to be that aligns specifically to their brand. So I personally have no problem with my clients doing Canva. I have seen some of the things my clients have made, and I'm not going to lie, my eyebrows raised a little bit like, oh boy, I don't know what we're doing here, but we're going to trust the process. Or, you know, sometimes I'll reach out to them and just subtly be like, hey, I saw you're doing this campaign. Do you need any help with this? Like,
yeah.
Or just invite a hand in there, and just kind of help guide them on that. Because, yeah, I think that's usually an easy thing to let go to the wayside is the visuals. Because it is, when you're in Canva, man, it is very squirrel. You have a lot of options. And if you don't know what you're looking for, and even just understanding the basic foundations of design hierarchy, like, how many fonts should I have on this? Should I have more than one font? What brand font would work best on this? Or I don't know what kind of images that I need to be looking for. So yeah, I think that's where the brand design expertise comes in hand. And that runs in with copywriting too. I'm sure when you hand stuff off to clients, you're like, why are you talking like this? This has nothing to do with brand voice. Who's writing this?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I need to give my clients permission to evolve. And so like I'm capturing their copy at a specific point in time, at a specific juncture in their business. And I want them to take it and run with it, but not like run in the other direction. I think that's probably fair with what you're saying with design.
And I think, you know, if you can stay a partner with your client, whatever that looks like, and you might not be a good partner later on. And if that's the case, cool. Like they can find another designer. It's not going to be the end of the world. It happens.
Right.
But I think if you can try to stay a partner with your clients throughout whatever phase that they're in, and then if they do end up being the next Nike or Apple, you know, maybe you can be that subcontracted, or maybe you can even be the full-time creative director, but you can help them reach that level to where they no longer have to do the design. They can finally afford an agency to do their work for them, or a team. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you're working with small business owners. A lot of them are solopreneurs, and they don't have the luxury to just consistently be hiring designers to do work all the time. So I think if you can approach it in a way to where, whether that's brand guidelines, I have found they do not always work with solopreneurs because they oftentimes don't read them, which is fine. But just keeping tabs and checking in, and just, you know, being a partner with them as they grow their business. Because essentially, if you can help them grow their business, they'll help you grow yours. So,
of course, I love that. I think that leads really beautifully into my next question for you, which is how people can work with you. I love the idea of partnering with a designer for things like social templates or things that you just need as your business evolves, right? You have that bright, shiny brand that somebody hands off to you initially, and then it's like, oh shoot, what do I do with it? How do I roll it out? And I think that that's a great opportunity for us to talk about your services and how people can work with you.
Yes. So I have a handful of services. A lot of it revolves around brand design and strategy. we could do creative direction, we could do brand strategy, logo design, web design. And then I do have some options as far as entry points go in there too. And then one of my favorite offers, and Sarah, you got to work with this too, is a VIP day. So you just book me for a day and we just hammer through whatever your top 3 priorities or goals are, whether that's social media templates, maybe a website refresh. That would be more of like a one thing we work on through the day. I think sometimes there's a misconception of like, I need a logo and website and social media Canva templates. Can we get all that done in a day? I mean, maybe. Probably not. Let's see what the most important thing is first. But
yeah,
I know that works really well with a lot of clients, is they just need a day to just kind of refresh or get some new inspiration with what they're working with.
Yeah. I loved working with you through the VIP day because you made some website updates for me on my case studies. Yeah. And it's like, I know I need to have case studies and they were so boring and text-based and I needed a little bit of flair. And so in one day, it was just amazing what you were able to do to just like embed my brand in the actual, case study. And so I think that having access to a designer on a short-term basis like that, you're not necessarily paying them monthly in terms of a retainer. It's like, okay, what is on my to-do list? And can I let that to-do list accumulate a little bit to 2 or 3 items and then say, hey, Carl, I need your help, right?
You're like, hey, I'm here. Let's do
it. I love that. Well, tell people where they can find you online and we'll wrap up here.
Yeah, so my website is hey-carl, CARL.com. And I always have to look up my Instagram handle. I'm Googling it right now. It's _hey.carl_. So those are me. Instagram is my main one. I do use Threads on occasion. But yeah, Instagram and website, and then my newsletter, which you can get access to that through Instagram or my website. So
awesome. Yeah. Awesome. We'll have all of this information in the show notes. I am sending you a big virtual hug, my friend. Thanks so much for joining me. And until next time, this is your Copywriter on Call signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Copywriter on Call podcast. If this episode has you feeling all sorts of inspired to show up as yourself online, click that subscribe button so you don't miss my stories or practical advice to help you express your quirky, vulnerable, and authentic self online. Chat soon.